Hi, this is Mark Taylor-Canfield for the MTC report, and I'm on my way to the Capitol Hill occupied protest. I've been covering these events in Seattle for over 2 weeks now, pretty much on a daily basis, and haven't gotten much sleep because there's a breaking story every day. And unfortunately, last night a man was shot. Actually, 2 men were shot, and one was killed at CHOP at the Capitol Hill occupied protest. It's very sad news, and I was watching Omari Salisbury's live stream after it happened, and he did a good job sort of explaining to people what took place long before any of the corporate media had any inkling of what was happening. They didn't have anyone on the ground at the site at that point, so those of us in independent media did the best we could to get the news out as soon as we could verify it. And so that's what I was doing all night, and this morning is trying to verify information before I reported it. But between Omari and I and some other independent journalists, well, actually mostly him and I, as far as I know, we pretty much covered it before anyone else, thanks to his live stream coverage. But he was actually asleep during the shooting, but he was quickly awakened by a call, got up, grabbed his phone and hit the streets and live streamed for the rest of the night. But I'm headed up there today to CHOP to see what the situation is like. I hear there's a memorial at the place where the young black man was killed. We still don't have any details about who did the shooting, what the circumstances were, but I'm sure as the day goes on we'll get more information. This is Mark Taylor-Canfield, headed to the Capitol Hill occupied protest, reporting from Seattle. Meanwhile, today, Donald Trump is holding a rally in Tulsa, one day after Juneteenth. Yeah, by the way, that man was killed on the evening of Juneteenth in Seattle, after a huge march earlier in the day that ended up going to Jimi Hendrix Park after an historical tour of the historically black Central District in Seattle. Sorry, I'm a little out of breath. I'm trying to walk up Capitol Hill. Seattle is full of hills. There's a lot of hills here. It's kind of like San Francisco or Rome in that way, built on 7 hills. But so there's a lot of controversy in Tulsa tonight. Apparently the rally didn't turn out to be as big as the Trump campaign organizers had advertised, so it's being referred to as the Trump rally failure at this point. But that's all happening concurrently at the same time that the story has broken in Seattle. So yeah, the corporate news people were not really on it early this morning. It took them till, I don't know, 7 a.m. Pacific time to finally start reporting. So for hours there, the rest of us, having verified the information, were trying to report it, and nobody in the corporate mainstream media was awake. They were snoozing. That's not the first time that's happened, by the way. I remember during the Occupy Seattle protests, the original encampment for that was at Westlake Park in downtown Seattle, which is a traditional place for protest in the city. It's in the shopping district downtown. So the Black Friday big events take place too. And Occupy Seattle were occupying the park. They had set up tents, much like they have here in the Capitol Hill occupied protest zone, and we're living there while the police were constantly harassing people, including members of the media who were down there covering it. And after weeks of this, they finally started arresting people. People got arrested down at Westlake Park, but that day, I think it was that same day, the mayor shook my hand on camera because he was being followed by news cameras and people. So I took the opportunity of saying, hey, you know, thanks for visiting folks at Occupy Seattle. Glad you're here to endorse this event. Which he wasn't, of course, but he kind of went along with it because he was on camera at the time. But then he shook my hand like really hard, like squeezed it really hard. And he looked like he was under extreme pressure. He was sweating. And, I mean, he gripped my hand really tightly and said, Mark, you guys have got to make your decision whether you're going to come down to City Hall where we can protect you and where there's already, you know, porta potties and amenities for people. And long story short, there had been a General Assembly where people agreed to go to City Hall to avoid the arrest, but a rogue group later in the evening sent a different signal, different messenger to the mayor's office, so they didn't know what was going on. And the second group said no. So after that, basically everyone moved to Seattle Central College, and there was an encampment there that went on for quite a long time. And at the time there was no law in the state of Washington which prohibited camping on a community college campus. It was just something no one had thought of. So there was no way for them to get rid of the protest encampment of Occupy Seattle. And so the college ended up going to the courts and getting a judge to make a ruling saying that the protesters had to leave. Meanwhile, this is when Dory Munson on KIRO radio was saying that the protesters, the Occupy Wall Street protesters, the Occupy Seattle protesters at Seattle Central College were rats, and they needed to bring in a, quote, exterminator, unquote. These are the kind of things that Dory Munson often says on the radio in Seattle, and he gets away with it. I don't know why Intercom pays this guy to be on that station to say such extraordinarily hateful things, but he does. And he continues to this day doing it. So there you go. He's always got something bad to say about anybody who expresses political dissent. So anyway, the Occupy Seattle activists decided to take over an abandoned warehouse, now just a few blocks from where I'm at right now on Capitol Hill. Right in that same zone, actually, where the protesters are holding out right now. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, of course, late at night, after all the corporate cameras and media had gone home, and there were just a few of us hanging out, they cordoned off about a 2-block area, wouldn't let anybody like me, like reporter, anywhere near the building, and they proceeded to commandeer a Seattle Fire Department ladder truck, which the Seattle police used to climb up onto the roof of the warehouse, where they proceeded to break through the ceiling, armed with assault rifles, and arrested, I believe it was 36 Occupy Seattle protesters who had been occupying the building. So I was trying to call the media, and we're at the Broadway Performance Hall now. Love this old sandstone. Reminds me of my hometown, where there's a quarry of sandstone here. But so I tried to call the media. I called the Seattle Times. There was nobody at their city desk. Nobody was taking any news tips at that point. I got a hold of a couple of the TV news stations in their newsroom, and they told me, we're not that interested, and we'll find out about it tomorrow, and let us know, how many people get arrested. So they didn't send any reporters. So that was another situation where yours truly and the Capitol Hill blog, which also broke this recent story before anybody else. Actually, we're right at Seattle Central College now, where the occupiers occupied this area right over here. That whole area where the sculpture is was full of tents. So this whole area was a occupied zone. And anyway, so the moral of the story there was that Judge Judith Hightower threw out all of the charges against the protesters who were in that building, saying that, first of all, nobody really knew who owned the building. Its ownership was kind of up in question. It had been totally abandoned, and it was due for demolition. So they had squatters' rights. And so all those charges got dropped after breaking through the ceiling, after commandeering a Seattle Fire Department ladder truck to arrest 36 people, none of whom had any previous warrants or anything like that. But all of those charges got thrown out. So kudos to you, Judge Judith Hightower, for being everybody's hero at that point. But I'm here at Seattle Central College now. We're just about to enter the CHOP zone, the Capitol Hill occupied protest, to see what's going on, to see how things have changed since last night with the tragic shooting of a young black man. So that's one of the demands of the protest, has been recalling the resignation of Mayor Durkan, Seattle Mayor, for failing to rein in the police department. So we are at Pine and Broadway now, just a block or so from where the shooting took place. So here we are in the zone. This is the famous Black Lives Matter painting that goes all the way down the street for 2 blocks. And there are definitely people hanging out today in the Seattle occupied zone. There's been people here every day for weeks. And that is one of the demands of the protesters. Here's one of the barriers still left outside of the East Precinct. And the police station is up here. So let's go check and see what that's looking like. It's been abandoned by the Seattle Police Department for 2 weeks now. This is Martin Luther King Jr. County, by the way. This county was originally named after Rufus King, who was actually a slave owner, but it was renamed after Dr. King with the permission of the King family. And he is definitely a hero to the movement in Seattle, always has been. The Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration Committee is full of folks who used to organize, believe it or not, with Dr. King when he was here just before Memphis to support the Seattle janitor strike. There's the Community Info Center. We can get information about what's going on here. And here is the police station. Nobody's tried to burn it. And it's called the Capitol Hill Occupy protest now. For a while, some folks were calling it the Seattle Autonomous Zone. But protesters really want it to be known that this is a protest. It's protected by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, which guarantees the right for people to peaceably assemble to petition their government for the redress of grievances. So this is what the front of the East Precinct in Seattle looks like right now. It has a huge mural, big poster of Angela Davis. And it's now called the Seattle People Department East Precinct instead of the Seattle Police Department. So that's what the front of the Seattle Police Station, the East Precinct, looks like now, folks. And as you can see, people are hanging out, doing music. And the people have taken over this space.
Yeah.
Other art projects going on here. And there is one of the demands of the protesters. In fact, it's demand number 1. And it's written in huge letters on the side of the East Precinct now. You can't avoid seeing it. And that is the proposal that several city council members are also backing. A lot of people here, folks. There's one of the other barricades. What's this thing? And if you just need a place to chill. Here's an art co-op where people are doing all sorts of art.
Wouldn't mind pitching in.
So that's going on right outside the police station right now. The art co-op. What a cool idea. So if you feel like painting or making some protest signs, they got the material right here.
Bro, I did not want to be janky though. I love my cup.